It's good to see you again. Back for another episode of the Jesus Cartel. With me, as always, my buddy Clay Russell. I'm Andrew Skull. In case you are unfamiliar with us, we're finding out, or I've been finding out, that we've got some people who've been watching our podcast that I don't even know and have no clue who I am.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think that that's happened actually quicker than we thought it would happen. So that's a good thing. So to continue to be on here and continue to introduce ourselves and stuff is a good thing. But I will say that our audience is getting bigger quicker than I thought that it would.
Yeah, I expected to have, somewhere between the 10 and 20 views for, probably 6 or so months. The fact that we're bumping up over 100 pretty consistently, and that's encouraging because, in addition to the phone calls we're getting, we know that people care enough to keep listening. And, man, I'm just so excited to hear that we've been able to be a help to some people.
Yeah, I met a lady for the first time on Sunday, and I introduced myself to her as Clay Russell, and she said, "Are you the same Clay Russell as on the podcast?" And I was like, "Well, I could be according to what podcast you're listening to." And then she started quoting you and me, and I was like, I'm definitely that guy right there. So that was a pretty cool experience for me. We meet a lot of the same, or see a lot of the same people all the time, but to, meet new people, I always enjoy that, and to have new people listening to us and getting our ideas and thoughts on something, I think that's great. And like I said, I've been very happy with, the success of the podcast this far. More views, more viewers, a wider audience, and a lot of them texting us or messaging us, asking us certain questions and topics or just feedback. I think the interaction is the best part for me so far.
Yeah, I like that. That was probably your first ever intro as Clay from the podcast, right? You never got that one?
Correct. I'm not usually that guy.
That's awesome. So you had a big week last week. Anything interesting happen?
Oh, we had a good week last week. Got a lot of ministry and got to watch a lot of baseball, high school baseball, and college baseball. Got to watch a lot of good college baseball games. Go Tigers! And so we enjoyed that. And and anytime there's a game on, it does, it gives you more interaction with people. You have group text and certain text, and then other people just asking you your thoughts about games and stuff. So whether it's watching my son, play for Mangum High School, or whether it's watching LSU, it's just sports kind of brings guys and families together and gives you more to talk about. So I enjoy interacting with people and being around families in our communities and also watching LSU sports. So it's been a good week.
Yeah. We want to mark this as the week that we immediately recorded after LSU won the national championship. So if anybody's listening to this, several years from now, we want you to know that we're really rolling off of this good energy. And so, it's been an interesting week. That's where the majority of, our week's energy has been. It's kind of surrounded the mayhem that is the College World Series. And so it's been a fun week.
So tell me this, we're unscripted here, but you brought it up, those things. What was your favorite part of the College World Series other than LSU winning the championship?
Specific play is actually the thing that comes to mind more than anything else, and that would be the Trey Morgan play when they were playing against Wake Forest, and he pushes a sacrifice bunt, perfect bunt by the way. The Wake Forest player executed that exactly the way you want to execute it, but Trey Morgan was just he did what only he could do with the hustle and the effort and the athleticism and the intelligence all combined for just one moment that can really easily get lost. And so those are the things that kind of get the things that get lost to everyone else. Those are the things that stand out to me. Everyone will always remember Tommy White hitting that home run.
Right.
People will forget about the Trey Morgan play that got them to that inning, because if Wake Forest scores that run, the game ends in the ninth, because LSU didn't score before the 11th. And then the relief pitcher that came in, I forget the young man's name, but the fact that he came in and threw those, I think it was like 4 shutout innings. Those are the things that stick out, the unsung heroes, because you got your stars that are capable of doing star things, And Trey Morgan is a star, but that young relief pitcher is not a star yet.
Harry.
Yeah,
Last night.
yeah, he is now. But I mean, when people step up and do things at that level, man, that's just I don't want to over spiritualize everything, but it's just the reality is it kind of reminds me of that transition from like when you received the Spirit of Christ on the inside of you. Before you were just a guy, but now you're a guy who's done some incredible things. It's because something has changed in you. So just to see that kind of reflected in sports, I really enjoy that. Yeah. Was there something that jumped off the page to you?
No, I enjoyed all of it. I enjoy the small moments. A lot of people love to start stuff or love to finish stuff. I'm more of a process guy. I enjoy the process. I enjoy hearing the middle reliever coming in and picking up that slack and getting those innings there. I enjoy when Dugas hits a clutch hit there. Not supposed to. I even enjoyed Jordan Thompson coming up big in the championship game after everybody blasting him, the day before, like we were just going to pop and have a whole new shortstop, out of nowhere. But I enjoy all those little things, combined. I enjoyed Paul Skeens just walking from underground to where the pitchers warm up at, to the bullpen, just so the crowd could roar, and different things like that. I mean, who doesn't love Riley Cooper coming in? I mean, for a little while there, we had, more of the guys with the dad bods and stuff, that were the stars, Who doesn't love that guy, to be able to come in that hasn't seen a gym in a long time and be able to come in and, hit a clutch home run or pitch, some clutch innings. So, hey, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed sports of all kinds and really enjoyed watching a lot of that this week.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be fitting, we continue with our Get to Know You segment, and I got a question for you that I have not ran by you, and I'm excited to hear your answer. I will do you one favor, and I'll answer first to give you a little bit of time to kind of process the question. But here's the question. You've got a time machine, and you can travel back in time to any place in any time to live for 1 month. You're not taking your family with you. It's just you. Where do you go? What time period and where? I can tell you that for me, I'm fascinated by old war culture. I'm talking like swords, axes, bows and arrows. And man, I've always just really wanted to see, because you see it depicted in movies and stuff like that. But I mean, how much of TV is reality? It's obviously some things like that existed here, there, and yonder. But I don't trust anything that's on television, really.
Right.
Movies, news, any of it, because everybody's got an agenda with whatever they're feeding you. But I can tell you for myself, being somebody who just really enjoys the intellectual side of combat, I would love to be around some of those old generals, those old war generals, and just kind of see just the things that are taking place in their mind and the strategy and everything that goes behind fighting a war like that, and then to be around some warriors that, I mean, I don't know that there's and this isn't to take anything away from anybody who's ever been in any sort of war, but just the complexity of a sword-fought war in the middle of you got people everywhere, every side of you, friend and foe. I can't imagine a more difficult scenario to be in because you have to be on guard at all times, but at the same time, you can't be too attack heavy because you could hurt someone you care about. And man, the complexity of that. I'd love to be around people who were, I guess, battle proven, battle tested, and see like kind of what is the psyche of a person like that. And to be able to compare that to so many warriors that I know today, both in the combat fields and in the military, and people that I know. And just kind of see the similarities and the differences of the two. That kind of stuff fascinates me. So that's what I'd like to do.
So for me, that's a difficult question because I'm really not a history guy, and don't think a lot about the past other than the Bible and different things like that. And so it's cliche. So I'm going to go to a Bible reference. I would love to have been there when Peter gets baptized with the Holy Spirit and changes from someone who denied Christ 3 times to someone that's boldly proclaiming the word. And here's why. Because I get to see transformations happen all the time. I get to see somebody go from an addict to a follower of Christ, or somebody that's, led in sin, and now they're leading people to Christ. And I get to see that a lot. And I would have loved to see, some of our top people and to see that transformation, whether it was Paul from Saul to Paul, whether it was Peter from, not being able to have, the courage and stuff, to being now filled with the Spirit and that power flowing through him, that he would say, this is where I'm going to build my church, and just that Holy Ghost boldness come over him. I love transformation so much that I would have liked to see one of those major transformations in biblical times.
Yeah, man, that would be cool. And in case any of our viewers are curious of which of us was a better person, Clay now takes the cake.
I usually try not to give that answer, but while you were talking, I couldn't think of anything except that kind of answer. So,
Andrew, I'd like to go hang out with the Vikings and see them do war. Clay, I'd just like to spend a moment with Jesus.
Yeah, but now remember, I wanted to hang out with Peter when he was preaching to the masses, not Paul when he was in prison.
Yeah.
So I can't take all the glory there.
That's good stuff. I'm going to tell you, if you haven't noticed yet, I don't know that I've done it enough, but I'm going to take a shot at Clay anytime that I can. But that's just the type of relationship we have, and it's cool to have friends that you care about enough and have a deep enough relationship with that you can poke fun at each other and there never be any type of quarrel.
So if we're going to poke fun at each other in our everyday lives, why wouldn't we do it on the podcast?
Yeah,
so that's how we live anyhow. Why would we be any different just because there's a couple cameras running?
Speaking of how we live, man, how we live now is we make a podcast. And last week I think we made a pretty good one.
Yeah.
We shared a lot on how to have humility and confidence at the same time. And got some really good feedback. Matter of fact, got to hang out with the person who asked us that question, or asked you that question more specifically. And he said that he had received a lot from the conversation, and thought you answered it perfectly, and thought that we crushed the practical side of it. So, man, I was feeling really good about that. Have you gotten any feedback on that?
Yeah, I have, and we do have a few people that are just now getting to that, and one tell me today he didn't realize that episode 3 is out. So, we are getting more of a routine to where they come out every Friday now, so people can start expecting that. Plus, I heard that we got approved on Spotify, so maybe by the time this episode comes out on Friday, maybe we'll be on Spotify also. So I know some people are just now listening to it and starting to get that feedback there. But yeah, we gave the correct response, which was not lip service. It was, really how we do it, and then able to break it down. And really been thinking ever since then, Andrew, we could probably teach a whole class on that. You could do 3 weeks on half of it and 3 weeks on the other half, but I really felt like we did a good job breaking it down, and we appreciate Halsey for asking us that topic or giving us that topic, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, and so that brings us into our viewer question of the week, and let me tell you, man, this is a good one. Someone asked, they said, how can we help our young teenagers continue their walk with Christ as they face trials in their high school years? Now, before we lean in there, I want to say this. When you hear that question, I think so many of our viewers I don't have young teenagers, and their first thought is to say, well, this episode's probably not for me. I want to tell you, do not stop listening, because this is 100% for you. And as we're going to answer this question head on, but as we continue through the podcast, you'll see it open up more and more and more to something that's going to be for anybody, regardless of whether or not you have teenagers. So how can we help our young teenagers continue in their walk with Christ as they face trials in their high school years? Does anything just kind of come to mind right away?
Yeah, so let me preface this by saying this. I have raised 3 teenagers. My oldest daughter is 20, soon to be 21. My youngest daughter is 19. My son's 15. And Andrew is the youth director extraordinaire, right? He's the one that, is not only known as a great youth director over the years, but the one that a lot of current youth directors call. So we have a lot of experience helping teenagers one-on-one and in big groups, So I feel like we have good opinions on this, which is why the young man asked us the question, because he knows that we have good opinions on this and would like to hear more about it. So I think that when you talk about, what can we do to help teenagers through their high school years, the best way goes to be able to start training them at a young age. So I think we need to preface that and say that, the best way is to start training them from birth. Okay. Now, we deal with a lot of people that went the way of the world, maybe got married or whatever, didn't get married, had children, and now they've gotten saved, and now they're having to play catch up a little bit. And we can help with that. I'm not saying that we can't. But the best way is to train them in the way of the Lord with a relationship with Jesus from 9 months before they ever come into the world, right? Be praying for them while their mom is pregnant with them, be showing them, a godly example through the years. So the very best way is to train them all the way, train them in the way, and they'll never depart from you, okay? So I want to preface it by saying that, that is the best way. But we do want to address those that wasn't able to do it that way, or didn't able to do it that way also.
Yeah, and I want to tack on to what you were saying at the beginning, because I think it's important always that if you're going to hear somebody answer a question, you know why these people are qualified to answer this question. And I say this in the most unbiased way possible. I've said this to countless other people, at least 50 other parents of kids that I have mentored and taught and stuff like this. Your children are the best children I've ever had as youth students. I'm saying it on a podcast in front of God and everybody because it's the truth. And anyone who hears this, I don't think anybody is even going to get mad because they also know your children. And they know that your children are probably the best kids I've ever had. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, they're the best kids that I've ever had. And so something was done different. It's the reason you and I became close, because I sought out a relationship with you because I saw something in your children. And I was like, there's got to be something to the Father. And so, we were plugged in around each other, but we weren't friends right away until some of these things started to get recognized. And then I started to pursue a relationship with you, which opened some doors in different places. And now we're just friends for the sake of being friends. We love each other. But it didn't start out that way. It started out as I need to meet the guy who raised these kids, because I've not ever had, at the point that I met your kids, I'd already been in ministry for probably 6-7 years, and I'd never met kids like that. And the oldest one was still very young. She was like 12, 13 when I came around. And so I was very perplexed. But part of me was like, we'll see how she develops as she ages. She aged, and she's still the same. And so to see your kids be rooted and grounded, truly rooted and grounded is something, man, I don't know that there is a more qualified person to answer the question than you.
Well, and I appreciate that. And before I address that, I will also say that I've also said on here before, and will say again, that you are the most intentional person that I know at developing relationships with people that last forever. So, I think that you're very qualified to answer this question also, because you have been intentional with so many teenagers. And that's virtually, the question is really, in my opinion, a little bit better for you, because the question actually is, what can we do to help teenagers?
Sure.
Well, I've grown my children into great teenagers, but you have helped countless teenagers.
Yeah.
So I think that we're both very good in this area. But even on this specific question itself, I think that you even have more insight than I do on that. But as far as my children go, I will say this, and they know this, and we'll make sure everybody understands. My children didn't come here great. They came here with the sin nature of Adam. We had to train them. I learned that a long time ago. Kids are some of the most selfish people in the world. When they want something, they cry. When they don't get their way, they scream. They're selfish. You have to train them in the way of the Lord. Now, I thank God every day that Becky and I got married at a young age. We become Christians at a young age, got married, after that, and then had children. So, we did it in the right order as far as giving our life to the Lord and then getting married and then having children. So things have been easier on us because it's been one man and one woman raising children in a Christian environment the entire time.
Yeah.
So, yes, it has been easier because of that, but we see Christian families not doing it that way all of the time. So, my perspective, I look at it as, hey, it's easy. It's not that big a deal. You teach your kids who they are in Christ. You teach them, this is how our family does things. You lead by example. You walk out what you're telling them. And then, hey, they see that example. They want to be like you and follow me as I follow Christ. And so I kind of make light of it a little bit because to me, it wasn't that difficult. But at the same time, we have to teach and train parents every day, so I do want to get some more into the nuts and bolts of it. But if you ask me, first off, how do you train your children or how do you teach your children in a way where they don't have to, go the way of the Lord when they're dealing with hard stuff is you teach them who they are in Christ. You teach them their own relationship in Christ. Hey, it's good for them to hang on to your relationship with Christ, but at some point, they got to make that decision for themselves. Teach them that God needs to be at the center of everything that they do. And if you do those things, then they can walk through high school and walk through these temptations and not have the same problems that everybody else has. But at the same time, I understand not everybody was able to teach their kids that way from the very beginning.
Yeah. And through the years as a youth pastor, I've had countless conversations. I want to say I probably had 1,000. I don't ever want to exaggerate. I really think I'm probably close.
Mm-hmm.
I've probably had 1,000 conversations with parents about, something's not going well with their kid and they'd like it to go a different path. That's a very common conversation for a parent to ask a youth pastor. I wish it wasn't, because the reality is your youth pastor's got an hour or two at most with a child a week. You can't undo what's being poured into a child in an hour or two. And so those are always very difficult conversations, but I can tell you this for sure. I've seen a lot about what doesn't work. I've seen a whole lot about what doesn't work. Well, I've seen it work in a handful of instances, and I've seen some parents do a really great job from birth, and I know some of those parents, and I could name them. But I've seen a lot of what doesn't work. A lot of what doesn't work. And so what I know doesn't work, I'm concrete on, And so I believe that there may be some other methods and stuff to teach your kids who they are in Christ I've yet to encounter, but I absolutely will not move on the things that are being done wrong. And I can tell you this, what almost every child gets in trouble for, myself included when I was a child, was always in pursuit of value. Every single time. Every single time. You cannot find any situation where a child gets in trouble and it wasn't in pursuit of achieving value or protecting value. It's the only two reasons they ever get in trouble. And when you first hear that, your mind's kind of like, no, that wasn't a thing. Break it down. Don't just look at the situation. Break it down. I can tell you the first time that I lied to my dad, it was because if I knew that I was going to get in trouble and he wasn't going to let me play in my baseball game, all of my value was attached to who I was as a baseball player, even as a kid, because it was the only thing that I was extremely good at. And so that's where I put all my eggs were in my baseball basket. And I didn't know how to function without it. And so I was willing to lie to protect it. I can't tell you how many times we see kids get bulldozed over by peer pressure. Why? Because they don't feel valued enough not to try to achieve value from these people. If they felt more valued and more secure in who they were, they wouldn't need the approval and the acceptance of these other kids. The reason they need it is because somehow someone has failed. And I hate to even say that because it's aggressive, but we have to embrace the realities here. This honest self-assessment. Someone has failed to instill value in them. And so they either don't understand who they are in Christ, or they don't understand how much you as a parent just absolutely loves and adores them. And there's no need for them to achieve anything else for you to value them. And because they don't understand that, they're looking for value and praise and acceptance from wherever they can get it because they're not getting it at home. And that's why kids rebel.
Yeah, that's a good point there. So we have to teach children at a young age, how much we value them, how much we love them, how much we care about them, and so they don't go looking for it in other places. But we also need to teach them what to value. If we teach them, if everything that we talk about is, becoming a better baseball player, what we're really saying is, I want to value as a baseball player.
Yeah.
So that when they don't do good at baseball, then they feel worse. And it's not because of them. A lot of kids don't put pressure on themselves. It's the pressure they feel from the parents and stuff. So we not only have to teach them that we value them, but we also have to teach them what to value. What should be significant in your life. I know with my children and stuff growing up, we wanted to be balanced. We wanted to make good grades. We wanted to play sports. We wanted to participate. We wanted to, in individual things and in group activities and stuff. But we didn't try to go overboard in any area. Okay, we didn't try to put a lot more significance in one area than we did in other areas. My children were all pretty intelligent and smart and stuff, but we didn't, send them to boarding school just because they were smart. We wanted them to, my daughters were cheerleaders, but we didn't, have them go doing cheer competitions all over the world. We wanted Cooper to enjoy team sports and stuff, but not in a way to where we had to sacrifice who we were as a family, So just, I guess what I'm saying is, we taught them the value of the family unit more than we did these specific, things to value. And I think in turn, we did what you're saying is, we showed them how much we value them by showing them the value that we put on the identity of our family.
Oh, wow. That's good. That's really good. I've never heard it worded like that.
And I don't think I've ever worded it like that before. Yeah. And so usually we go a little back and forth here, but I think I need to stay with this real quick. And I want to say something that I do know that I have said before along with that. And that is this. Where family identity is strong, peer pressure is weak. But where family identity is weak, peer pressure is strong. So, as pastors, leaders, mentors, husbands to our family, I think the most important thing that we can teach them is, like I said, who we are in Christ and our family identity. Because if they understand that, then the peer pressure of the ways of the world is weakened. But if, like you said earlier, if they're looking for value, if they're not even looking for value, but if they're not receiving that enough, then peer pressure is so stronger than they can overcome.
And it gave me chills when you said that, and the reason being is it's crazy how fast your mind works. But when you said that, I immediately processed 100 times where people came to me devastated because of what their son or daughter did, and every time it was because of a weakened family unit. And it's it kind of overcame me when you said it. That hit me hard, and so true. And can I say that that's still true for adults? Right. So if you don't have young teenagers, this part's for you, right? It's still your problem today. If you're still chasing immorality in different forms or sinful pleasure and stuff like that, it's because of your lack of understanding of value. So you're trying to achieve it or you're trying to protect it somewhere. And I can attest to this because I do a lot of marriage counseling with people too. I can't tell you how many times a husband or a wife will have an affair and then look at their spouse and say it's because they didn't feel valued. They didn't feel valued, and so they pursued it somewhere else. And that doesn't, if you're in the wrong side of that situation, I don't want you to feel like it's your fault and you didn't value them and that's what happened. It's why we don't get steered by our feelings, Clay. That's why we had a whole podcast dedicated to how you feel is not your God. How you feel is not your compass, right? And so, it's it's a big deal. My mind wants to just go. I just want to rail a bunch of topics right now.
Yeah, I think we're in a great spot right now, because, the question, was, what can we do to help our teenagers in their high school years, But right now, I think we have a consensus of showing them their value.
Yes.
Showing them their worth, showing them who they are in Christ, and then showing them what to value and what's important. And it's the same way with everything. Lip service is one thing, but showing them what to value based on what you value, hey, it's huge. Kids are going to see right through you. Yeah. All this talking and lip service and saying one thing, kids will see right through you. They see right through phony real quick. They can see when you're real and when you're not. When you live the life that you're supposed to live, you can say a whole lot less. Mm-hmm. But when you don't live it, it doesn't matter how many words you say. People aren't going to believe you, not even your children. So if you show them what you value, then they in turn are going to value those same things. But it doesn't matter if you don't show it to them, you can't say it enough.
Man, I'm getting amped up.
Man, we're doing good today.
Yeah, I'm trying to remain calm. I did not think that this question was going to do this to me, but it has. Man, I'm trying to remain calm. This goes all the way back to mankind's first sin.
Mm-hmm.
Did God really say you can't eat any of these trees? Like, nah, that's not what he said. He just said this one tree. It's like, oh man, no. He just doesn't want you to be like him.
Mm-hmm.
What's man think? Increase of value. Increase of value. This is going to make me more than I am. Pursuit of value. It's so crazy, but what you said, man, so true. And hear this. Look, tell that young man, tell that young woman how much you love them.
Yes. Tell
them how much you value them. Tell them it has absolutely nothing to do with what they are doing, what they've done, or what they will ever do. You love them because they are your son. You love them because they are your daughter, and you make sure that they understand it. And after you do that, live a life that reflects it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you tell them that, and they watch you not love your wife, they watch you not love their mother, the words will be useless. And no matter how clear it was in the moment that you said it, the minute that you're not reflecting that in your lifestyle, it's over with. Relationships trump everything.
That's it.
Relationships trump everything. What are they seeing at home? What are they seeing at home? Because if you're telling them that Jesus is enough, that's where your value is. Mm-hmm. The family unit is enough. That's where your value is. But then you're not finding your value in Christ, and you don't respect the family unit, then what are they to do?
Yeah.
Right?
I talked to a good friend of mine last night. This a great guy. He's more resilient than I am. I feel like he's more of a man of God than I am. And he's dealing with some things in his family right now, and having to expose some things and cut some things and deal with some things. And it's difficult, But now they're in the healing part of it, Now it's been exposed. Now they're in the healing part of it. And he's, he's able to tell them how much he loves them, but they know that. They know that he loves them. They know that this is, he's only having these conversations with them for their benefit. That's one thing they know about him is that he cares about them so much. He doesn't care about the actions and what they did. He cares about them, right? He loves them not for what they do, good or bad, but for who they are. Well, because of that, then he's able to deal with these difficult situations so much better than if his children didn't truly believe that he valued them and didn't love them and didn't care about them 100%. We hear people say all the time, the word love just gets thrown around. People fall in and out of love like they're falling out of a ditch or something, But when your children truly know that, you love them not because you have to, but because you want to, and like you said, on top of that, I think a better word is value, just because they feel the love through you valuing them, okay? And so when your children feel like that, then it's easier to have the difficult conversations, but to get back to the question at hand a little bit more, maybe, is the very first thing that I think you can do to help children or teenagers is to be honest with them. You know, we hear people say all the time, well, honesty is the best policy. You have to be honest with yourself or whatever. But, you know, before you can be honest with other people, you have to be honest with yourself. So as a parent, if you know who you are in Christ and you're walking this thing out, then the next step is to be honest with your children. You know, when my children come to me, I'm not overly harsh, but I'm also not sugarcoating anything. We're going to be right down the middle. Hey, This is the way I see it. You know, this is the way I see what's going on here, whether it's good or bad. I'm not saying, I'm not predicting what's going to happen or whatever. I'm just saying, based on what's happening right now in your life, this is what I see. Just being honest with them. Not being passive in a way to let them do whatever they want to do, or not being so judgmental that you're watching their every move, but just being honest with them about what's going on. Hey, this is something that I see happening. It looks like it's probably not going to end up well, and this is something that we need to talk about. And I have those conversations with my children, and I know you've had that same conversation. I mean, what teenager comes to you and you're just going to just blow them off? You know, they really want your honest opinion, right?
Sure. I want to ask you a question, and if you could, I'd like you to just give me a one-word, just clear answer. Would you say it would be fair of me to say that you are a pretty busy guy?
Yes.
Okay. You spend more time with your children than anyone else I know. And I would agree that you are very busy. Spend time with your kids.
Yes.
You want to show your kids that you value them, cut time out for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you're telling them how special and important they are, but you're not carving out time for them, those two things don't mix, right? You're extremely busy, but you're so good and so intentional about cutting time out anyways. And I don't see a lot of people do that anymore. And it's for, I'm going to use finger quotes here, good reasons, right? You're trying to make money, you're trying to do this, you're trying to support the family, you're talking about futures, we're talking about college, we're talking about cars, all this stuff. There's nothing more valuable than your time. There's nothing more valuable than your time. And my family, my home, has sacrificed somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $70,000 a year, just depending on which direction we'd go if we changed our mind, just so that we could spend more time with our kids. Just so that I can have a wife that gets to spend a ton of time with my kids. Just so that we can free some things up. And look, every single day, and I mean every day, and you know this about me, I'm trying to find a way to cut more out of my work. And I'm trying to cut corners on, do I really need to pay for this? Like, is this a bill we can do away with? How can I spend less money on food so that I can work less, so that I can be home more? Like, it is the most prevalent thing on my mind, how to get around my children and my wife more. The most prevalent thing on my mind. I think about it every single day. Every day. And I don't see families doing that anymore. They don't realize the value of that time. Spend time with your kids. If you're too busy for your kids, you are too busy. Stop something, quit something, cut your hours down. It would be worth it for you to take half the money you're making right now and ensure that your kids feel valued and have a real future in Christ, than for you to make all the money in the world, buy them a nice truck or a nice car or whatever it is, kids are into nowadays, and them not have that firm relationship and have to go through the same thing that you went through, the same thing that I went through, and have all of these years of struggle that maybe they come back from.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to get this time back. I saw something on Facebook a couple of days ago, and I didn't write it down. I should have, I guess, for this point. But, it just talked about the percentage of time of a child's or a person's life you spend the most time with them right now, like 0 to 12. And then at 12 to, 16, it was a certain amount, 16 and 21, a certain amount, and then after that. And so right now, like at your children's ages and stuff, you're never going to get that time back.
Yeah.
And so we do need to spend, as much time with them as possible. And I would even add another word to it. I would say quality time.
Yeah.
I love team sports as much as anybody. You know, I love, I wanted my children to participate in team sports, team activities. I enjoy watching team sports and team activities. But even when you're at a ball game watching a team sport or team activity, you're watching everybody and you got everything. You need to find time to be with your children individually.
Yeah.
You know, not watching them and 12 of their friends,
Yeah.
but watching them. And not just watching them, but participating with them. You know, with the girls, man, you know, I had girls at a young age at 14 months apart, and I become the best cheer daddy there was. You know, here I am, you know, I got shirts, you know, my daughter's the flyer on the deal, you know, whatever it is. I've never been into that before, but now I'm into that. Why? Because that's what they're doing. I want them to play softball. They played softball for a little while, then they decide to cheer. So now, instead of being a softball coach, now I'm a cheer daddy. You know, that's what I am. And I'm going to be the best I can be. I'll be the one that carries all their stuff. I'll be the one that watches over them when boys start to look at them. I'll be the one that takes them whatever they're into, that's what I want to do. You know, and I think that's something with our children is, you know, being there for what they wanted to do instead of trying to get them to do what you want them to do.
That's good.
You know, and that's a deeper thing in all relationships. Like I said, I hope you didn't turn it off if, you know, think we're just talking about teenagers or kids or whatever, because you got to love people the way they want to be loved instead of the way you want to love them.
Yeah.
And that starts in the family unit. It starts with your spouse. You got to love your spouse the way she wants to be loved. I mean, that's the reason why the book, the 5 Love Languages, become so big. It really wasn't that big a deal. The biggest deal was just loving your people the way they want to be loved instead of the way you want to love them.
It's a really simple concept.
Yeah, it's a really simple concept, and we made a whole cult out of it. You know, I hate to say it like that, but, you know, a whole deal out of it. But really all it is loving people the way they want to be loved instead of the way you want to love them. Well, same thing with your children. You know, let them be who God created them to be, and you go support that. You know, support what they were doing. I talked to a man in my community the other day that said, you know, I raised my son up to be a hunter and a fisher, and because that's what we do. I mean, that's kind of his business, you know, and everything. Yeah. And he said my son enjoys that. But above all, he really enjoys baseball. He said, so I'm like, you know, at some point, I'm like, okay, well, if you really enjoy baseball, then instead of putting all our money and time and all this into hunting and fishing, if you really enjoy baseball, then I'm going to get you a baseball coach and we're going to work on this. And he has, but he had to kind of make that transition, and I'm glad he made it. But you know, a lot of people don't make that. They want their children to be whatever they're into or what they want to live through their kids. But really at the same time, find out what your kids, you know, desires are. Find out what their passions are. Find out what God's put on the inside of them and go support that. Yeah. You know, support what God has showed them instead of trying to get them to do what you want them to do all the time.
Yeah, 100%. That's good stuff, man. You know, you said the thing, you know, regarding the family unit that, you know, love them the way that they want to be loved. You know, yesterday somebody called me asking for advice and some prayer in a situation, and they told me to tell you that you told them that during marriage counseling, and that it worked, and that it has blessed their marriage. And he asked me to tell you that, and I totally forgot until you said it just now. And so, you know, I say that to say it's legitimate.
Amen.
It's real. And in spending time with your kids, man, it's an excellent way to show them that you value them. Being intentional like that with what they like to do. And here's the deal. You don't have to be able to do what they like to do. Right? If they like basketball, you don't have to be good at basketball. You don't have to go play them one-on-one. Just rebound for them. So just catch it and pass it back to them. You know, show them that you care enough. As a matter of fact, it probably mean more. That you're not good at it. And it's like, my dad hates basketball. And here he is rebounding the ball for me while I'm shooting. Like that means something to kids. They're smart and they know. And they're so smart, so young. And that's why, you know, you're talking about being honest with them. I'm not saying let's reveal the darknesses of the world to them. I'm not saying I should tell my you know, 3-year-old that if she's not careful, somebody's going to abduct her and she'll get trafficked in Eastern Europe. That's not what I'm saying. No. It's too much. You know, there's a certain level of shelter and protection that your kids need and deserve. But there are also some things that they do need to be led to the other side on. And, as a minister, one of the greatest moments you'll ever have in your life, and I say as a minister, as a Christian in general, is watching your children give their life to the Lord. It's a huge moment. And there's an extreme temptation to teach them some elementary level version of Christianity from a young age, let them give their life to the Lord, use the finger quotes, and really have no understanding of anything that's happening. We had very honest conversations with Aria. That's my oldest one. She's 6 now. She gave her life to the Lord right before she turned 5, I believe. So she was very young. But I can tell you that she could explain the gospel to you better than most adults. It wasn't because we sit there and beat her over the head with it. We don't. But when there was problems, I explained to her why there was problems. Because when she was misbehaving, she wanted to know why she was misbehaving. And we talked about it. We said, hey, look, there's a nature inside of you that's broken. And there's really only one way to fix it. And, it's something that you're going to continue to struggle with until you get to a point that you truly want and desire change. And of course, when you say things like that to a child, they're like, oh yeah, sign me up for that. I'd love to be changed. And it's like, you can't, it's so tempting to just lead them to that conversation and then, walk them through a prayer that they don't really have a full grasp of yet. And so, we taught them about these things, but we didn't teach them about these things in a way where we were trying to coax them into this moment because I wanted it to be a genuine moment. And so, these are conversations we had regularly when there were problems, talking about, the need for something different. And I never, we talk about Jesus all the time in our house, but I never tried to shove it towards her as a quick fix for her behavior. And so finally one day, man, she did something just crazy out of nowhere. I don't remember what it was. I'll tell you. She smoked our dog with I think it's like a Barbie. I mean, just whopped him. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just sitting in the middle of the room, and she smoked him. And, I spanked her immediately, sent her to the room. And my wife is just looking at me with mouth to the floor like, what just happened? What did because my children are so well behaved.
Right.
So well behaved. And so for that to happen out of nowhere, we were just both like, oh my goodness. Like, there's nothing that makes the sinful, natural nature of a person more relevant than when your perfect angel child just whops a dog for no reason. And so we just talked about it, and we just kind of agreed. My wife and I were like, man, this girl, she needs the Lord. It's just a reality. She really does. And it sounds so horrible, but it's a reality. It's my child needs Jesus as desperately as I did in my addictions. She needs him just as bad. And so I leave her in timeout for a little while after she got her spanking. That's right, I did both. And when I went in there, she was laid face down on the bed, praying that Jesus would change her heart. Nobody told her to do that. Nobody told her to do that. Nobody even told her that that's how it works. She just wanted to be different. And then I got to have the conversation. And it was beautiful. But it was all because of honesty up front beforehand. My child needed to know that there was a real problem on the inside of her, so that Jesus doing something meant something to her.
Yeah.
Because if she doesn't understand there's a real problem, then we're like, yeah, you got Jesus in your heart. That doesn't mean anything, because that dates back as long as she's ever been. And now she can mark a time in her life where things changed. And now when she does something wrong, I don't say, hey, look, you got a broken ankle. Hey, look, baby, that's not who you are. That's not who you are. I remind her who she is. And I reiterate her value. Right? Doesn't mean she doesn't still get spanking sometimes. Doesn't mean she still doesn't have to go to timeout sometimes. But I reiterate her value instead of telling her that there's something wrong with her.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'd like to say this before we keep moving forward is we at the Jesus Cartel do not promote the hurt or harmful of animals in any way. We'll get our pastor to tell you a story one day. But anyhow, so yeah, having honest conversations with your children and do want to, like I said, clarify that. We're not saying that you tell them everything. We don't believe in that. But when you do need to speak to your children, that you tell that you are honest with them for the situation that they are in. And then, showing them their value and showing them, what their values should be and what they should value and being intentional with them. I want to hit the being intentional, spending time with your children just a little bit more real quick. And just give props to my wife. Anybody that knows my wife, I'm married to the best woman that God ever made. She was perfect in every way. The only thing that she ever did wrong was being with me when I wasn't right. And but anyhow, she is perfect in every way. But she made one B in her life, and that was in high school. She didn't like PE. She wasn't a sports person. She didn't like to play basketball. She didn't like to do anything that had to do with sports. And so she would change into her PE clothes and she'd walk and make laps or whatever, around the gym. But this particular day, their PE teacher was demanding that they play basketball. And so she just didn't dress out. Well, because she didn't dress out, then she got a B. And because she got a B, she wasn't valedictorian. She was salutatory. Okay? And so I said all that to say this. I don't know of any woman that's been to more sporting events in the last 20 years than my wife. Like I said, the only B she ever got was because she didn't want to participate in sports. But then God paired her with someone that loves sports and loves to go watch all kind of random people play all kind of different things. And then a son that, can name every NFL player there is, and just loves sports. And she's been to Yankee Stadium and watched the Boston Red Sox and, the New York Yankees play. She's been to the Superdome and watched the Saints play. She's been to championship games. Her and I were on the field when LSU beat Alabama this year. She's doing all these kind of things, not because she wanted to, but because the ones that she loved the most wanted to. And to me, that's one of the things that, I admire about her the most is her being involved. I mean, I've seen her rebound so many basketballs, for Cooper, or try to throw back a football when he's learning, to throw and to catch and to kick and different things. And her participate in those things so much. And he's got a daddy that's very present in his life and does all those things, but yet she still steps in and wants to also be present. She's not a mom that just says, well, him and his daddy can go do that, because we do a lot of those things together. But she wants to go with us, as much as she can too, and be a part of that. So I would encourage that to all the moms and dads out there, that even if the other, even if your spouse is participating with your children in something, and that may kind of be their thing, hey, I say you get involved in some of that too. Cooper and I go to a lot of football games together, but we also go to a lot of them with Becky also, in those events. So, don't feel like just because one parent is present in an area that you can't be, or that's good enough. Hey, do it as a team. And another thing I want to go back to, when we talked about the family unit, and I know we're doing a lot of talking on this podcast. That's a good topic. I think all these topics have been great.
Yeah.
But I said that where the family identity is strong, peer pressure is weak. I said this and confessed this to our church one time, and I just want to put it out there on this podcast real quick. Andrew talked about how we raised our children and, how great they are. And, and I'm going to be honest with you, we take credit for that. Becky and I do. God in us has parented those children. They're not who they are by mistake. They are who they are based on what God has showed us and what God has showed them. But let me just say this publicly in front of everybody. Becky and I did a really great job of raising Annalise and Elena. I really can't think of but one little mistake that we probably made the whole time. We probably should have had a certain conversation a little quicker, but really did an outstanding job of raising Annalise and Elena. Now, we didn't do a great job of raising Cooper, right? And here's why. Because Annalise and Elena raised Cooper. Mom and Daddy really didn't have to do that much. Annalise and Elena told Cooper, this is how we do things. This is the way you're going to be. This is the right way to do things. This is how we do it in our household. And this is what's going on. So Mom and Daddy really didn't have to do that much. I'm making light when I say we didn't do a good job. We didn't have to do as much of the job because Annalise and Elena did the job. Yeah. They showed Cooper how we do things, right? And so they instilled the family values that we have in our family into Cooper. Now Cooper's in high school now. He's going to be a sophomore. Well, in those junior high, low high school years where temptation is so big and peer pressure is so great, do you think that some 12-year-old boy is going to be able to convince Cooper to do something that's against our family values? Do you think some, 14-year-old girl is going to be able to convince Cooper to do something that's against our family values? There's no way. Because they're so strongly instilled in him, not just by his parents, but by his siblings. He's not going to let some stranger influence him in a negative way of something that's against our values and against our morals, because they've been instilled in him not just by his parents, but by the family unit as a whole. So when that temptation comes, it's really not even a temptation because our family unit is so strong. And that's the goal. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that is the goal. Just like my goal in life is to live with such good integrity that even the people that wanted to say something bad about me couldn't find anything bad to say. Titus chapter 2 was the same way. We want our family unit to be so strong that even if somebody did try to come mess that up, we probably wouldn't even know it because our family unit is so strong that the peer pressure is so weak. So just wanted to put that out there.
That's good. Really good. I did want to say, when we were talking about honesty, something came to mind, and I just feel like this is important. I don't know specifically who this is for, but I think it's for somebody. Don't tell your children other adults' business. Don't tell your children other adults' business. There's a difference in being honest and having conversations, but there are conversations I have to have with my wife about some things that are going on with adults. My children don't need to be privy to. They don't need to hear about. They don't need to have those things in their head. They're too young for a lot of what is going on. And in addition to the fact that they're too young for a lot of what is going on, they also don't have the maturity to understand what is appropriate to talk about and not talk about. And so do not involve your children in adults' business. If it's something that you need to tell your children to protect your children, it's one thing. Like, hey, we don't go to this person's house because, that's like 0.01%.
So we don't go to so-and-so's house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to give an explanation.
Correct.
So let me echo that real quick, because when Miss Becky and I got saved, we got married, lots of couples in this area did too. Mm-hmm. And so lots of people, especially at River Life Church, of course we had a different church then and we moved to River Life, but a lot of us got saved, healed, and delivered at the same time. We got married, started having children, and we'd all hang out together. And a couple of the couples, or a few of the couples, had a mindset of, well, I don't want to ever say anything that I can't say in front of my kids. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand where that came from.
It sounds noble.
Sounds noble, sounds great. Kind of hard to argue with, but me, I don't mind. Giving my opinion there. And let me just say this: looking back at it now, I would think that those same people would agree that that was probably not the smartest move on their part. Because what happened was they allowed their children to be privileged to adult conversations too early in life. And because of that, their children, with just a human nature, were wanting more. Mm-hmm. So they're wanting to learn more. So they get too adult too quick, or too much adult knowledge too quick. Mm-hmm. And they weren't able to stay, children or naive long enough. Okay, so I agree with you 100%. When we say, be honest with your children, we're not saying tell your children everything you're thinking. We're not saying tell them everything that is going on in the world. We're not telling you to tell them all of adult information. No, what we're saying is that when they're going through something in life and you need to talk to them, be honest with them about it. That's all we're saying. We're saying don't hide it, don't sugarcoat it, don't act like it didn't exist. When you need to have a certain conversation, have a certain conversation. We're not telling you to have every conversation.
You may also be inadvertently teaching your children to gossip.
Come on.
And so that's a bad thing. I can just say this quick statement, plain as can be. I've never had a kid who gossips in any of the youth that I was in. I've never had a kid who gossips walk out their relationship with the Lord. I've never seen it. Not once. I've never seen a kid with a strong relationship with the Lord that also gossiped about people. Not once. And so, and it typically is the first thing to go when they turn it around, is they stop talking about people and start seeing people through the lens of who they are or who they could be rather than whatever happened. And so we'll lean into that another time. I just kind of want to close this conversation off. We've been at it, man. We've been at it. We put some information out, but I want to close this conversation off with this last little question statement is. So where do you fit into this if you don't have teenagers? This is where you fit in. One, all of these things about not understanding your value, pursuing value, or maintaining value is true for you, right? So if you're struggling in an area, figure out where you're not understanding your value, correct that, and it will correct the other thing. And two, you always have the opportunity to mentor these young people. You have opportunities in your life to mentor these young people. When I say young people, I'm not necessarily even talking about young teenagers, but there's people you work with that are younger than you, that have families. Maybe you've already raised your kids. Well, there's people raising kids right now that need your input, that need your guidance. Maybe you've never raised kids yet. Good. Continue studying this, learning this. Let this be something now you should seek out information for people that you recognize. Do like I did. See someone who raised a family the way you'd like your family to look. Start spending time with them. So maybe you're not the mentor. Maybe you're the mentee. Put yourself in that role. Find a relationship for somebody who loves you enough to pour into you. And if it doesn't exist, pursue it until it does exist. And man, it will change everything. I'll
add just about the same thing, just a little different way. So the three main things we talked about, honesty. Be honest with yourself and be honest with those around you. Okay, it's hard to be honest with those around you if you're not honest with yourself first. Okay, and then number two, about value. Know your value, and also know what to value or what to put your value in, and then be intentional with your time. In whatever area it is, whether it's, in your small group or in your family or in your church or in your relationship with God, whatever it is, don't just have a lot of wasted time in your day. And that's something we can talk about another day is time management. But I really do. I probably spend more time with my wife and children than almost anybody I know. And I have 4 jobs and a lot of, not donations, but volunteer work on top of those 4 jobs. And I still spend a ton of time with my family because we're very good at time management. We're also very good at making that time count. And so, Andrew has said that, and I just kind of want to follow up there. He's talked about spending time with your children, and we just want you to make sure you understand that isn't you laying on the couch watching TV and them running around the house. That is good quality time doing either something fun or something productive. I love the old song that now, everybody, where they say, and they think we're just fishing.
Yeah.
I love that because it's so true, whatever you're doing with your children, you're able to build those relationships. And if you haven't figured it out yet, us at the Jesus Cartel, we value relationships. If you hadn't learned that, you need to learn it now. We value relationships. And that's why our family, identity is so strong at the Skull family and at the Russell household is because we value those relationships. And what better place to start it than at home?
Yeah.
But then when you get good at that, then you need to start, valuing those relationships with other people and using these same things that we talked about today: honesty, integrity, honesty, values, and time.
Yeah.
Man, I thought it was great today, man.
Yeah, we're not done. Hold on.
Come on.
I want to say this because you said it earlier, man. You said it doesn't happen by accident.
Amen.
It doesn't happen by accident. And I hear it all the time from different people. And I don't get my feelings hurt. I can't be offended because I see them how they're supposed to be seen. But the reality is so many people are like, man, you're so lucky that you have these great kids. We are not lucky. We are very intentional about the way that we raise our kids. And look, can I just be honest? Not everybody likes it.
Right.
Not everybody likes the way we raise our kids. I probably get more disagreement than I do agreement, just in life in general. But when you put my kids next to anyone else's kids,
Yep.
you would never make the trade.
Yep.
You'd never make the trade. And when you get down to brass tacks and rubber meets the road, my kids will win. My kids will win because they are immensely valued, and they know that. No matter how strict we may seem, or whatever people kind of want to toss your way because they don't know the whole story. They just see what they see. They don't know the relationships. No matter what labels you want to toss that way, when the rubber meets the roads, my kids will win, and they will win because they know how dearly loved they are, and they know why. And
hey, I agree 100%. I love it every time Courtney comes to me to talk to me about something, or you come to talk to me about something, involving raising the kids. When there's some area, somebody may not agree with this or whatever, and we talk about it, and I smile because almost every time I just smile because I'm like, you're doing it just right.
Yeah.
And this is the results that we expect.
Yeah.
We expect your kids to be better because of it, and we expect some people that aren't used to seeing that to not agree with it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not right. And y'all are, man. Y'all are knocking it out of the park. Courtney had to take our children at River Life to church camp, and your $3 been able to hang out with us for the last couple of days at work a little bit more, and couldn't ask for $3 better hanging out with us all day long at work, and we're really working, and they're allowing us to really work and do what we're supposed to do, but it's because they have been trained in such a way where they're so respectful. They're, able to satisfy themselves, even though they'd rather be with Daddy. They know Daddy's working right now, and then they're so well behaved and love people that it made it so easy. Who else could bring their $3 to work, 6 and under, and still get work done?
For about 6 hours.
Yeah.
2 days in a row.
2 days in a row, and been able to do stuff between, the center and at church, and so. Hats off to you, man.
And then another thing that was really cool about that is my wife, because she's home with the girls. We decided as a family that we wanted to raise our own kids. So we made some financial sacrifices. I picked up some extra work. She stopped doing hers so that she can be the primary influence on our children, because we want them to have our heart, our values. And so she's normally home. But this week she's not. And so she's gone, and she's not getting home until after 7. And so she's leaving before 7. She's getting home after 7. You know whose schedule that is? Mine. And so she's getting to experience it. And she came home yesterday, and it was really honoring. She was just like, getting to see what you do every day, so that I can have this relationship with our children. She said, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. How you come home and you don't just fall out and crash, because I'm so tired. And I just looked at her and said, well, I love you. That's how. That's how. There's nothing more to it. I have to do the extra work, but that doesn't remove my responsibility to be intentional. And so if I've only got a couple of hours in the evening, I'm going to be intentional. And when I first started, it was every evening. But I've managed to cut it back, and now it's just a couple of evenings. And so, as things continue to progress, I'm constantly increasing my skill. And here's, for the people that are overloaded, overworked, or whatever, I'm constantly increasing my skill set, my reach, my contacts, everything I can do to increase the personal value of my time, so that I can work less and we can still be in the same place that we are. And so, right now the stuff I'm good at is not what I'll be good at in a year. I'll be much better at everything that I do. And hopefully, in some form or fashion, doors will open where somebody sees that and values that enough to say, hey, look, we'd like you to continue working here at an increased pay rate, and then you can have these hours off so you can spend more time with your family. And that stuff doesn't just happen. It's worked for, And man, I think we covered such a variety of topics today. I hope that everybody could receive from that. And whether your kids are young and you're just starting to get to raise them, or maybe you wandered off for a while and you're back in your kid's life and they're a little bit older, the answer is the same. Start right now. Start today. Letting them know how valuable they are so that they don't have to pursue that anywhere else. And that's my closing remarks.
Amen. Hey, look, we appreciate you turning into the Jesus Cartel. But if you've enjoyed, what we talk about on a weekly basis, then I'm sure you know somebody else that would enjoy it. So while we're building this podcast, here's our pitch to you. Find a way to share this podcast with them. It's on YouTube right now. We've been putting a link on Facebook. It'll be on Spotify probably by the time this episode comes out on Friday. But start letting your friends know. I know I take the link off of YouTube and just share it to people's text message and stuff. So share it with some people that you think it would help and benefit. And so look, we appreciate y'all and thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, love you guys.